Hi, I'm Bharat, and I run marketing and technical partner integrations for developer relations at Okta. Today, I'm really excited to talk about some of the work we've been doing for the past 6 months with Kong, including working with their new Kong Connect solutions. We want you to build the future of identity with us, and that is not possible without great API management and great API strategy. I want to introduce Mike Bilodeau, who's my counterpart at Kong and who has been working with me on this journey of creating augmented use cases for APIs and identity. Basically, the questions are like, how do I secure who accesses my APIs, and how do they access my APIs with authentication and role-based access control. Um, I'm really excited to be having Kong at our event, and I wanted to kind of put it over to Mike and ask the question of, hey, how do you guys think about helping your customers govern access to their APIs?
Thanks, Bharat, and super excited to be here too. I think as we look at ourselves as an ecosystem company, getting to be part of the Okta ecosystem and have Okta as part of our ecosystem is really awesome, and love all the things that we've been working on together. And so, if we look a little bit at just the background and sort of the subtext to all of this around why it matters so much to be thinking about authentication, authorization, identity in general for APIs, is really that these mega trends are happening that I think everybody in the development, DevOps, sort of API-centric space is seeing, of where there's the movement from monolithic to smaller microservices, and especially cloud native microservices. And so we're seeing everybody under that same pressure to innovate, and that's creating a lot more APIs and connections that we need to manage. And so for us at Kong, what's really important is being able to provide kind of that connectivity that's reliable for every API and every microservice, whether it's at the edge, across applications like Kubernetes ingress, or within the application in a service mesh type of paradigm. And so one of the things that we're seeing a lot is just looking at how authentication and authorization fit into the development life cycle. And so we see a lot of opportunity, especially with Okta, of where there's an opportunity of inserting authentication, authorization, basically all the policies that you need to govern your APIs and how they behave directly into the development lifecycle. And so when you don't have that, you really have this challenge of where if you don't have an API platform or an API management solution and a corresponding authentication, authorization, identity provider that can work with it well, you really start to get these issues that come into the entire lifecycle of how you're going to manage your APIs. So you're going to see that slow down development. So you're going to get a lot of manually created specs and docs that either they're not standardized, they're not consistent, or in a lot of cases they might even be missing some of those critical elements around identity. And then you've got a lot of slow processes in the middle of where things are getting checked. There's no easy way to either generate the specifications, check them, validate them, make sure that they're working well, as well as just having potentially problems of having your gateway as part of that process in general. And then really on that outside of thinking about the ecosystem that everybody really wants to build is, there's a saying that goes like, you never build an API for yourself, you're building it for someone else. And so if there's no real way of allowing people to access that through a developer portal that, again, can be authenticated and can provide that identity to those other developers, whether they're inside your organization or outside of your organization, you're making an API that's going to be very limited in value. And so all these things kind of conspire to really, hurting how I think a lot of folks want to move into a more modern way of developing APIs and microservices.
There's another thing there too, Mike, where if you're using, if you're thinking about an API strategy and then you put on an identity provider there, the identity provider actually takes care of all the new stuff coming into all the threat vectors that are new, so you don't have to write that code ever. And I think that's one of the big things that people don't think about when they think about APIs and identity. It's like, why do I want to manage this stuff? You don't. And the reason you don't is not just because of that lift that you have to do, but it also because all of the things that the identity provider and the API gateway provide, like it just automatically automates when something new comes in.
Exactly. I mean, when we get into this, we look a lot at the organization, but from the standpoint of people who are kind of developing and working on these things day in and day out, the biggest thing is it's just a waste of time. When you can outsource essentially some of the redundant manual code that you'd have to just be writing over and over again, and you look at some of this of where, okay, maybe when you had one application or one monolithic app, it wasn't that bad. But now when you're dealing with tens or hundreds of APIs, it gets really time consuming, and either it's going to, at best case, waste you a lot of time and a lot of money because you're spending all this time doing it instead of,
and worst case risk.
And at worst case,
exactly,
it's not going to be in there. You're not going to have that standardization, and you're going to put, either you're going to have the risk of it being inconsistent, or you're going to have the risk of something actually kind of bad happening. And that's another thing of where we really look at how we fit in with Okta is we look at it really injecting sort of the Okta and now of course Auth0 as well, really into every part of this process. And so we think about everything in how you're actually building out your specifications. So making sure that in your design and test workflows, you're able to basically test that authentication and authorization are behaving the way that you would expect them to. Being able to have that, again, identity into the CI/CD process of where making sure that there are certain checks and balances into your workflows so that as you're promoting things throughout the process or throughout the development lifecycle, you're making sure that you're never getting to a stage where you're shipping something into production that either has out of compliance identity policies or worse yet, none at all. And then of course on the outside of it is looking at how you can onboard either folks within your own organization or outside your organization to help them start consuming those APIs as rapidly as possible. So that's when you get into those RBAC things that we were talking about before, of where instead of having to really go in, define all of the down to the line policies of which APIs every single given developer can access, we're able to do that in a role-based way. We're able to make sure that it's governed using that same IDP and really provide that frictionless developer onboarding experience. And that's a huge way we're working with Okta today with a large portion of our customers.
Right when you said we're moving the testing part of it too, that's just music to my ears. Like basically, it's like because it's like it's shifting identity left, and I love this concept of where when we're thinking about an API strategy, we're also not just testing the API part of it, we're testing the identity part of it at the same time early in the process. And I mean, that's just to me, that's something that a lot of people haven't had the ability to do, and us coming together, Kong and Okta, we're able to give that to customers. So,
yeah, I think you'll like this even more then. So when we start to talk, you can start to see it painted out of how we're working this in. So, we think of API ops kind of as an evolution of DevOps, GitOps. It's complementary. It's not something that replaces it, but it takes into account those specific nuances that you need when you're thinking about dealing with APIs in particular. And so when we look at all of the different places that you can really inject identity, I put all these logos in because this is sort of what it comes down to is you can have that for every single person who's logging into the Connect kind of central management plane for us, every person who's looking into each one of your different services in the Service Hub, every single external person who's coming in and looking at your developer portal, or they want to access your analytics like Kong Vitals. And then, of course, exactly what you were just talking to there of really making sure that it's injected into that entire process of your Git workflows, going into your CI/CD pipeline, and getting it into just the life cycle of where you're constantly making it a part of how you actually develop, publish, promote, whatever you want to call it, each part of that entire process to make sure that you're never at a stage of where you could potentially be in a situation that you don't want to be in from an identity perspective.
And from an API perspective.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right?
Again,
I think
it makes it faster to just do it this way, right?
yeah, it makes it faster and less maintenance, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's the other key of it. Like I feel like both of our companies, what we're helping people do is do less maintenance. It's like,
Yeah.
and that's hey, this has been really nice talking to you this morning, Mike. And I just want to thank you again for joining our event, and I'm really excited about and I'll just pop this up here, but like I'm really excited about some of the technical integrations that we're working on, and for folks out there. We're working on some really cool technical integrations that we're going to talk more about at the Kong Summit in September. So please come and join the Kong Summit in September. And Mike and other folks at Kong are going to talk more about some of the integrations that we're building technically with Kong from the Okta and Auth0 side. Thank you again, Mike. Great to have you. It's our pleasure. And I want to remind everybody that we have 5 great developer labs tomorrow as well, and on demand from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., including a lab where we show you how to implement Kong Connect with Okta. Please join us. I'm going to now pass it over. Thanks again, Mike. And I'm going to pass it over to Vic now. He's going to show you how it all comes together with this demo.
Hi, I'm Victor Gamov, developer advocate with Kong, and in this part of our presentation here at Okta Developer Day, I'm going to show you how you can integrate Okta and your applications using our Kong Connect platform. So Kong Connect, it is a managed control plane for your Kong gateway. Your Kong gateway can be deployed wherever you like. It can be deployed in your bare metal application, somewhere in the cloud, somewhere in Kubernetes. And this platform allows to manage and enable some additional functionality without changing the application code. Today, I'll show you how you can enable authorization and authentication for your application using integration between Okta and Kong. In this demo, I will be using the application that deployed already in the cloud and running in the public internet called httpbin.org. It's just a simple application that allows you to test your HTTP communication and play around with HTTP protocol. I will be using this as an example of the service where I don't need to change the code or modify of this application in order to provide new behavior. So let's get to it. I already have an account at Kong Connect, and you can sign up and play around with for free. I already have a runtime configured. Runtime, it is instance of a Kong gateway that deployed somewhere here. In this particular case, my Kong gateway is deployed in Google Cloud Platform, and in the Google Cloud Platform, it runs inside the Docker. If you want to configure your runtime, you can click this configure runtime, and you can connect any version, even Linux. You can get this, install it on your Linux machine, and connect to Kong Connect platform. Also, you can run this in Kubernetes. You can find the video on the Kong YouTube channel where I explain how you can do this. Next thing is that I will be adding new service that will be representing my upstream application. So in this particular case, it's going to be HTTP bin version 1 http bin.org. Click create. The next thing is that I need to configure actual implementation. So that's service that I just created here. It's a logical instance that is available in Connect and will be used to configure my gateway. But actual implementation, this is what I'm creating right now. So here it's going to be http bin.org. Next, and I need to create the first route, call it http bin. It will do path /http bin, and that would suffice for now. The way how it works, let me show you. I'm going to my Insomnia, make sure there's nothing enabled here, so just a simple GET request. Take some time to my local caches to update. But here's the thing that I see. This is the response from the service and information that's about the path, where we came from, what's the forward this. So this information is provided by http bin.org because everything that you send to this resource will be played back to you as a kind of like a echo server. So the next thing that I will be showing you two examples for today. Those examples will explain how you can do things around service-to-service authorization. So for example, you have a service that doesn't have UI and you need to interact this only through API. So how you can use things like Okta in order to manage access to the service. And the second example, I will show you how you can use Okta to do interactive authentication and authorization. So you would know if you need to enter username and password. So it's more like a traditional OAuth example. So let's start with the first one, machine-to-machine or service-to-service communication. So I do have a route here. This route we just tested. I want to add a plugin, and this plugin in this case will be using OpenID Connect plugin. So in order to use this, I have my Okta applications already configured. So I go here to applications, and my first application that will be using my client ID and client secrets is here, client credentials. So I need to use this client ID and client secret in my config. So if I'll go here, client ID, click here, client secret. Another thing that I need to put here, it's the URL for authorization server. The way how I can get this, I need to go to security API in my Okta interface and get this issuer URL here. Config issuer. In order to make it more interesting, I just reset the cache for 10 seconds. And another thing that I want to add here is that my scope. This particular case is going to be scope that I already created here. So I'm going here, creating scopes, and that's my custom scope that I want to have for my services. Now, when I enable this plugin, so I will be able to connect to my, say, private window. Just go here, just do get. So starting getting something else. So it redirects me to Okta, but it shows me the bad request, meaning that I cannot use this service configured in this way in order to access this through the simple get. I need to provide some authorization information. So in this case, I need to go here, click basic authorization. I'll just do Kong client ID and client secret. When I send this, it sends me back response that I just did. This is the response to my request, http://bin.get, but also it will include a token. So this token that we can take a look in this GWT IO website. And we know that this token was provided by this authorization server for this client ID. So now I can use this application to communicate with this service. So when I need to provide the basic authentication, I need to include this with my request. And after that, each request will include this information about bearer token. That's a use case where we need to deal with the service-to-service communication. So let's configure another route, but we're going to be using for different use cases. This is going to be HTTP2, and we add path / HTTP bin 2. Go in here. So what I wanted to do, and when we go into this URL through the browser, I want to get access, I want to Okta control access to this one. In order to use this, I will be using another application. I go into application, and here is the client credentials. So client credentials application will be using different client ID and a secret. And another thing that I also need to get from here is configure this route slightly differently. So in this case, I went and configured this as there's a few types of applications you can create in Okta. So when you go and create the application, I will be using this type OpenID for connecting this through my web application. Or if I want to use this kind of like service-to-service communication, I will just create the API-based application. So next thing that I'm also creating this OpenID Connect plugin for my authorization code. I'm going in here, client ID. Client secret. And the difference between this thing is that I also can specify my redirect. So when we go to this URL, we need to get authorized by Okta. So we need to have these URLs. And after that, when it's done, when we successfully enter our credentials, we will be able to navigate back to our application. So we can do scope. We can specify our scope that I created for my application. And let's see. Yeah, that should work. Another thing that you will see here, there's assignments that I have two users that would be assigned to this application. So I can use both users to log in to my service now. So what I will go ahead here, I'll just do create missing host URL. Okay, sure, I'll miss that. And just let me see if I have a correct secret and key and TL. Also configured here. Create. Now, if I will create a new private window, try to access to this one, to the get, I should be able to see Okta window. So in this case, I will be logging with my GitHub. Log into my one password. Will be using my own. For some reason, it's redirected me back to my admin console, but I was able to redirect back to the service, and now I get access to this one. And also, let's take a look on this. Copy value. Let's see if we'll get. We're getting this token that we can analyze and see if it's a correct one. Let me remove the trailing one. And now I see this is different application ID. And now this is my information that I can get from this OpenID Connect provider, information about the user that will be included now with token. So in my application, I will be able to introspect this authorization token and extract some additional information from my application. What if I want to restrict the access to this resource? So this user will not be able to get access here. So in my Okta, I do have groups called Kong group that only one user will be included here, a user named Rick Astley. And now I need to teach my endpoint to use this. So the way how it works in this particular case, I need to create with my authorization server, I need to create a claim that will include information about this particular group. So I'm going here into my claim. See, there's nothing here. I'll call it Kong claim for groups. Start with Kong and start with create. So now I need to go and modify my service. Let's keep this window open. And in my plugin configuration, I can click edit plugin. Need to configure special names. So in this case, I need to configure scopes claim. In this case, it's going to be Kong claim. And scopes required. In this case, it will require scope about the group. So Kong group. Click update. Get back to my service if I can try it again. Now I get a message forbidden because let's take a look. I was logged into the system using my my own user ID. So in this case, I was not the part of this Kong group. Now let's try again with different user. So I'll go in here. Once again, trying to log in here. It's forbidden, but because maybe some additional information here. It should not be here. Let's start with another private window. Now my application, I can enter my Rick Astley username and password. And now I click sign in. And now I was successfully logged in using this one. And let's take a look on my token. We can log token here. What kind of additional information we have here? So we know that this is our user that we get here. And we also now having a Kong claim as a part of our response that we're getting from Okta. And we know that this particular group, which is comply with configuration that we provided in the Kong gateway side of things. So that would be it for today. But it doesn't mean that Okta Developer Day will end on this one for you. So tomorrow we will have a developer lab where you can join my colleagues who can help you with some hands-on experience and how you configure this yourself. I hope you enjoyed this demo. As always, my name is Viktor Gamov, and have a nice day.